The Jets might actually have an embarrassment of riches here at pick 10. Before we dive into what that even means, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan. Now let's get started. So, for those of you who don't know, a little background. I actually used to cover the Jets 2 years ago, as a matter of fact. I still have the mini helmet over here. See? Boom. There we go. Look, I have a soft spot for the Jets. I am a Rams fan. I am doing NFL content on this channel, but I have an idea of what the Jets are. I have an idea about their roster a little bit more than maybe other teams. Not so much more because I follow the NFL just as much as pretty much anybody else. So, really when it comes down to the Jets, I was looking at this pick at 10 and I thought, wow, they really have so many different avenues that they can go in. And that's a credit to Joe Douglas, and that's a credit to just what's on the team right now. Now, you could say what you will. Okay, maybe you don't love Aaron Rodgers in the position that he's in, coming off the injury that he's coming off of, but let's just assume, and I understand assuming is probably not the best course of action, but just assume Aaron Rodgers is probably going to play, right? He's going to at least play. And at the same time, when you're looking at this roster right here, and you see Tyrod Taylor as the backup. Currently, Zach Wilson's on the roster. I don't see him staying on the roster, but I like Tyrod Taylor as the backup. I saw him at MetLife Stadium against the Rams. He almost let it come back last year. I thought he played some good football. I think he's always been underrated. He's a good spot starter. He can win you games, especially when you have an offensive line and weapons. And by the way, that's what the Jets did. They went out and they got Mike Williams in free agency, an offensive weapon, and they got some offensive line help with John Simpson. They added Tyron Smith, and of course, they added Morgan Moses. So, before we dive into everything here, just wanted to state that they also had Javon Kinlaw in the interior, and they traded for Hassan Reddick. Now, I like their offseason, and I think that we're going to like it a lot more even after this draft. Looking at wide receiver, because we're going to avoid the quarterback position, I understand you could have there's some logic there to drafting a quarterback to develop behind Aaron Rodgers. But at the same time, you have a very limited, tight window to win with Aaron Rodgers. You have to get this thing done. And the worst thing you could possibly do is draft a quarterback this year when you have a finite amount of time left with Aaron Rodgers. So with that said, we skip quarterback. There's no running back worth taking in the first round. Plus, they already have Breece Hall. You love that. Izzy Abanikanda. I like what they have there. Xavier Valade as well is somebody I really like. But look, wide receiver, I think they need a slot, okay? They have Mike Williams, love him on the outside, although he is a little bit of an injury risk. That's also something to keep in mind. So you love him on the outside. Garrett Wilson's outstanding. His release package off the line of scrimmage is outstanding. His route running is outstanding. His hands are outstanding. He is an outstanding football player, and he didn't really even get a chance to catch a pass from Aaron Rodgers in the regular season last year. So I'm excited about that dynamic. In addition to that, Jason Brownlee, who was a college free agent last year, and, of course, Xavier Gipson, who also was a college free agent last year. Gipson, of course, took a touchdown back to the house in Game 1 against the Bills. That game they lost Aaron Rodgers. He took the game winner back against the Bills. But those two offer some upside. That doesn't mean I want them starting. And then Allen Lazard offers upside because of what he could do with a full season of Aaron Rodgers. Last year didn't go according to plan, but if he's still on the roster come September, I wouldn't be surprised if he had himself a sneaky good year if Rodgers stays healthy. But still, I think there is no reason at all to say that the wide receiver position is not justifiable for the Jets. They're sitting here at pick 10. So if a wide receiver of the caliber that you're talking with Odunze, or not going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., but Odunze or even Malik Neighbors fall to you at pick 10, there's no issue picking them, first off. They could trade up also. I don't see any of the top three falling into the Jets' lap at 10. I think the best case scenario for them would be Odunze. I just don't see that happening. So with that said, I think they could trade up, and they have the capital to do so. With that said, though, and to be fair, they're probably not going to do that. And they're probably going to look to trade down, which has been a rumor already. And when you look at potential slot, and interchangeable options that could play on the outside and on the inside, which is what I think the Jets should be targeting. There are a lot of guys in this class. I think if you're looking for particularly slot, you're looking at Malik Washington out of Virginia, Jacob Cowing out of Arizona, and Roman Wilson out of Michigan. I think those guys on day 2 make way too much sense for the Jets. If one of the top guys doesn't fall into their lap here, they should not be reaching on a wide receiver at pick 10. And they should probably trade down if they want a wide receiver that bad. So looking at the wide receiver position, unlikely there'll be a guy there, but if there is, I definitely think it makes sense for the Jets to go that route. In addition to that, we have the tight end position. Now, some might actually push back on this, and I would not be surprised if they did. Tight end position, you got Tyler Conklin, who's starting. And to be honest with you, I think he's always been underrated. He's somebody I like and didn't get a chance to play with Aaron Rodgers last year, so you have to imagine he could do something with him. The same thing could be said for, last year's 3rd-round pick, or 2 years 3rd-round pick ago, Jeremy Ruckert, who I think has, an opportunity to do something. And then, of course, Zach Kuntz. I love his athletic profile and his upside, last year's 7th-round pick. So, look, I like the athletic upside of Kuntz. I like the overall build, I think, of Ruckert. I think he can be a blocking and receiving guy. And then I think Conklin does the same thing. But Brock Bowers is the closest thing you're going to get to an elite tackle prospect that doesn't come around every single year. Really good blocker, a unicorn type of athlete at tight end, great receiver, yards after the catch ability, really intelligent. If you're looking for a guy that can help you day one, Brock Bowers would be your starting tight end. And, you could get creative with him too. You could use him at wide receiver as well. And you're getting Aaron Rodgers another weapon. So I definitely don't think that would be a bad decision. I don't think it would upset him at all. So look, wide receiver, if it's not there and you want a pass catcher that badly in the 1st round, Brock Bowers at 10 makes a ton of sense. And I think this is going to start to be a trending name. Obviously, he's somebody that is well known, but I mean, for the Jets, there are mock drafts that have the Jets taking a tackle. There are mock drafts that have them trading down, trading up. But I actually think that right now, if I had to put any money on this, I think they end up with Brock Bowers at pick 10. We move on to tackle, though, sticking with the offensive line. You have a year like last year, Aaron Rodgers going down with an injury. You're trying to make sure that doesn't happen at all costs. And they did a nice job, as I mentioned, the aforementioned John Simpson going out and getting him from Baltimore, getting Morgan Moses, and of course getting Tyron Smith, I think really shows that they're committed to protecting Aaron Rodgers this season, which they should be. They have high upside guys that I like in Max Mitchell and, of course, Carter Warren. But in addition to that, you have Elijah Vera-Tucker, who's coming back, who can play guard, and you have Joe Tippmann, who is going to be the center. Really good offensive line on paper, but that does not mean for a second that they shouldn't consider playing the tackle spot. And the reason being is at pick 10, you have a chance. I don't see Joe Alt falling here, but you have a chance to go out and get one of the big 3, whether that's Fuaga, Alt, or Fashanu. And if you're, saying big 4, JC Latham via a trade down. So look, the reason why I suggest this is because I always have to mention the draft isn't for just the here and now. It's also for the future. And if you make moves just for the here and now in the NFL draft, you are going to be doomed to fail. That is just the way it is. If you take Brock Bowers right now just to help you right now and you pass over other guys, that's going to be a problem. You take guys that can help you now, but also can help you down the road. And that's the thing at the tackle spot, because Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are nice plug-and-play options in 2024, but that's what they currently are. They both have 1 year left on their deal. Of course, 1 year deal for Tyron Smith. And so, I look at this and I just don't think that you can, rule out tackle here. Maybe they don't start. Maybe they do. I think this is a need. It might not be right this second, but it's going to be as soon as 2025 kicks off. And, it's best to get ahead of that now when you have a great offensive tackle class with 3 blue chip offensive tackles instead of waiting until next year. And you could say, yeah, this tackle class is really good. I'll just wait until day 2. And that might actually work for you. However, we've seen these tackles, guys like Tristan Wirfs, and then you go bargain bin, or you decide to be like, oh, I'll just take a guy in the 2nd round and 3rd round. It's like, and then that 2nd, 3rd round guy ends up being solid, but you don't get like a Pro Bowl, all-pro guy. So I think that's something to keep in mind there for sure. And then, keep in mind, whoever they take could really take over for Morgan Moses at right tackle. I think Tyron Smith is locked in at left tackle. Obviously, just his accomplishments, the name, the money. But Morgan Moses could actually lose that job if they drafted Joe Alt or they drafted Olu Fashanu or they drafted Fuaga. I could really see that. So, look, it might not be, again, you have a tight window, I get that, but there might be a way to use these guys, immediately. And I think while you definitely want to, use that tight window, of course, you want to, operate in that frame, you also have the frame of mind, like what's going to happen if you don't address the tackle position and you wait until next year, tackle, class isn't as good, so forth. So that's something to keep in mind there. Then we move over to the defense, and there's only two positions I'm really focused on. And the reason being is if you want a linebacker, they have Quincy Williams, they have CJ Mosley, who they really like. They have guys like, Zaire Barnes and Jamie Sherwood. And, in actuality, they could add another linebacker, but there isn't one that's good enough to pick here. I'm just being honest. So then you look at, interior defensive line. I think they feel really good getting Javon Kinlaw, having Quinnen Williams, having Leki Fotu, Solomon Thomas. They have a lot of, talent there. So there's no need to go interior defensive line. So that leaves us with edge and cornerback. And of course, safety, which they could absolutely add a safety, although Tony Adams played really well as a college free agent from 2022. They are going to get Chuck Clark back, who was, he was injured early on, missed the whole season last year. So that's good. But with that said, edge and cornerback. And when you're looking at the defense here, I think you have to start with edge. They just acquired Hassan Reddick via trade. We talked about this earlier. We mentioned it earlier. It does not take away from the fact that Will McDonald IV is absolute stud. He isn't being used to the level of his capabilities. They like the rotation there with the defensive line. So there's a chance that, he gets a lot of playing time this year. Jermaine Johnson took significant strides last year. John Franklin Myers can play inside or outside. He's very, very talented. And then Michael Clemens is an underrated fourth rounder from 2022 who, has shown that he has some ferocity there. So they could add to the spot, on day two. I don't see a need to pick one at pick 10. That's what you did last year. You picked at pick 15. You picked Will McDonald IV, which was a great move, by the way. I loved that pick. But I don't see them going that, route this year. Back to back years picking an edge in the first round seems a little ridiculous. Also, I don't know if there's an edge that I would take in the top 10 personally, so I would pass. And then you have cornerback here. This is intriguing because DJ Reed is set to hit free agency in 2025. So again, you want to focus on the here and now, but you also want to have, and you want to be mindful of the future. The Jets can definitely add to this room. They would have the best cornerback in the draft if they picked him at 10. In my opinion, I don't think there's going to be a cornerback that goes before 10. So you have your pick of the litter there, whether that is Terrion Arnold, whether you think Cooper DeJean's the guy, or you go with who I think is the best in Quinion Mitchell. You have your pick of the litter at pick 10 when it comes to cornerback. I think it's worth preparing for the future. And I think, you take whoever you get, they're going to be cornerback 3 at the very least day one, and they have a chance to take over for Reed by season's end. So I think there's a real shot there. As far as the trade down opportunities, I think there's a chance that the quarterbacks are going to go like hotcakes in the top 10. And if that's the case, and the best case scenario for the Jets is that a guy like McCarthy or May does end up falling to pick 10, and it makes the pick worth that much more. You're going to have a lot of demand. You have the Vikings, who, if they haven't already traded up like everyone expects them to do, they're at pick 11. They'll probably trade up. There's going to be plenty of demand. And I think teams that could trade up, not necessarily just for quarterbacks, but just in general, the Vikings and Broncos definitely are going to be interested in the quarterbacks, I think. The Steelers would be interested potentially in trading up for a tackle. I could see them going all the way up for Fashanu. I could see them going up for Fuaga. I could see them going up for even another, a Brock Bowers or somebody like that. The Rams, they could trade up at 10. They could take, Fashanu. They could try to get ahead of a team for an edge defender. They could, go after a wide receiver if they're there. I mean, I don't expect it, but they could. And then the Bengals could trade all the way up to take Brock Bowers, which I really wouldn't be surprised with. They could also take a tackle. They could take an interior defensive lineman. I think the trade up is an option as well if they really covet Joe Alt, because there's going to be a tackle available for them. But if it's not the tackle they want, then maybe they trade up. Same thing goes for wide receiver and other positions. So I could see a trade up. I could definitely see a trade down. I think if they stay here, I think they take Brock Bowers. I think he makes a lot of sense based on the mission. You have a guy that has a 5th-year option, and being that case, you know, and this is why he won't go like early in my opinion. Top 10 I think is a good fit, because tight ends, like, he's already going to be one of the more expensive tight ends based on that 5th-year option. So it's not like you're saving a ton of money. Like if you got an edge defender here at 10 and he ends up being really, really good, you're getting a bargain deal by getting him on that 5th-year option. You're not paying him top dollar. Whereas a guy like Brock Bowers, you're already paying in the upper, you know, top 10, I would say he'd be a top 10 highest paid tight end when, you know, that 5th-year option rolls around. So it's worth mentioning. I do think that they would go with Bowers in this sense, because I think, you know, he offers stuff for the here and now and the future, and Aaron Rodgers gets a weapon right off the bat, brand new weapon to go with Mike Williams. So brand new guys for the offense that can make it even better. So it's worth mentioning. It's worth saying. And I think that they go that route. If they don't go that route, I kind of feel like they trade down. I'm not getting the vibe that they're going to take a tackle, though I wouldn't be surprised if it was Fashanu. But I'm not getting the vibe they're going to take a tackle. I think they either trade down and get some picks. Maybe you get another 2nd or another 3rd, or they draft Brock Bowers at pick 10. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your comments below what your thoughts are. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also hit the bell icon so you don't miss another JE NFL video. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, folks. Later.